What was once a cornfield now sits a sprawling campus known as Redemption Christian Church. In small town rural southern Indiana 23 years ago, an upstart church began with a handful of people, and God has grown it to an impactful church of more than 2,000 with campuses in 3 towns. How did this happen? What did God use to not just make a church grow, but create a movement of Christ followers who are brought into the mission of loving God, loving people, and changing the world? This is the Redemption Story, a series of programs in association with Redemption Christian Church and the Kevin R. Smith Company that attempts to tell a bit of the story of what God has done and is doing at and through Redemption Christian Church. Well, Daryl, it's a first on the Redemption Story. We have a special guest today that we're going to talk to. Mr. Ryan Stiles, thanks for joining us,
Thanks
my
for
friend.
having me. Yeah.
Appreciate you having us. You're having us in this piece, by the way. That's why you're in the middle
I wasn't told
in
that.
that regard. And I'm not quite sure why Daryl made you sit by me, since neither one of us have any hair on the top of the head, and he chose the end seat. But we're going to see what happens. But Daryl, we spent a lot of time in the past year plus with our episodes talking about all the behind the scenes and the work that gets done. And Ryan represents campus manager here at your Jasper campus. Talk a little bit about the importance and the role that those campus managers play.
Yeah, well, right off the bat, when we decided that we were launching campuses, you have to have a campus pastor at your new launching point. There's somebody that has to be the front pastor at that campus. There's somebody that's going to run the day-to-day operations of that campus. And of course, when we launched in Logoti, we had Richard Crabtree and then Cameron Gladish is there now. And then, of course, in Tell City, we have Corey, Andrew. But we knew that was a big, important piece of it. But one of the things we felt convicted of, most of the campus multi-site churches we visited did not have a campus pastor at the broadcast campus. That was what often was the original campus. And we felt if you didn't have that, then it sends the message that it's a satellite rather than a multi-site campus. We're one church in 3 locations, not one church that has 2 satellites. And sometimes people use those phrases, and I don't correct them because I get what they're saying. But we felt like that Jasper campus, while always the original, while the largest, so probably going to get a lot of attention, we didn't want it to be the main campus. We wanted it to be one of the 3 campuses. And so to do that, we felt like, and I may be getting a little bit ahead, but we felt like we needed a campus pastor at this campus. So what a campus pastor does is really, they are the senior pastor for that campus. They're the lead pastor for that campus. Lead pastor is probably a better term. You used to call us senior ministers, senior pastors, but that now makes it feel like you're the leader of the older people. I'm older, like senior partner in a law firm. But lead pastor is what is often called now. But anyway, long story short, the campus pastors are really important. They have to be highly relational because they're pastoring their people. They also have to have some level of management skills because they're managing the day-to-day operations of that location. And so it's important that a person has those two really important skills. It's also important that they understand, to use a secular term, they're almost the middle management of the operation because they're getting vision from the central team, from the lead team, and they're helping carry that out. They're selling that message, for lack of a better term. They're the ones that are communicating that message. They're the ones that get the buy-in of their people. And so it's a really important role. One of the things that we decided early on is to do, and we've talked a little bit about this, to do the video-based teaching, like from the Jasper campus, from primarily the 2 main communicators, LG and myself, Drew Thurman back at the time when we launched. So we felt like if we do that, there's going to be several reasons why we chose to do the video model. Because there are campuses that have preaching all the time at every location. But we felt like, number one, it's one message, unified. They're getting the same vision message if you do the video teaching. The second thing is it opens up who you can hire for that campus pastor. So they don't have to predominantly be a preaching gifted preaching. Now, it just so happens our guys know how to do that and do it well, but it doesn't have to be that way. And then thirdly, it enables them to not spend 20, 30 hours a week on that message, but instead pouring in and leading their people and helping grow that campus up. Because when you first start a campus, it's ground level. It's a church plant in a great sense. And so they need to operate. So we decided to do that. And then Drew and I began to talk. We really felt like the Jasper campus, the broadcast campus, needed a campus pastor. Or else it's always going to be big church, their little sisters or brothers or whatever. And we didn't want it to be that way. And so we decided that, made that decision. And then we're like, okay, how's this going to work? Who's going to do it? At the Jasper campus, do we got to go out and hire somebody new? Well, that probably isn't going to work real well. And at the time, Ryan Stiles was on our staff as the outreach minister and really operations. He did outreach and operations, and we'd even talked with him about an executive pastor role in the future, possibly. I think we'd brought that up. But we felt like, Drew and I began to talk, we felt like his giftedness really was more in the pastoral side. Obviously, operations and all that, he could do what you need to do as a campus pastor. And so we went to him and said, hey, how would you feel about being our Jasper campus pastor? And at the time, Daniel Ross was communications and worship, and so we shifted him to the executive pastor role and then brought Ryan on. And so when we launched day one, even before day one, when we launched Logoti, we had a campus pastor here. What's interesting about that, and then we'll get to talk to Ryan instead of me doing all the talking. What's interesting about that is I thought it would take a long time for it to take at this location. I really didn't think people would so quickly gravitate, and they did. Like on Sundays, people don't come up to me to ask me questions at this campus. They go to Ryan because they see him as their pastor, as this location's pastor, and it really worked out much faster than what probably, and that's partly because of his personality as well. But anyway, that's kind of how it started. So that's what the campus pastor is, and then that's how we got Ryan.
Well, thank you for the breakdown and the background. And as you're talking, I recall an episode we've had in the past during the first season of the Redemption Story. You're talking about you want the same message at all the campuses. This role that Orion Stiles plays and the other individuals play in Tell City and Logoti must be critical to ensure that message is getting out properly, but yet that autonomy with the location in that particular piece. And Ryan, would love to hear on some of the things that you do to ensure that aspect. But first I have to ask, when Daryl, Drew, others came to you about this opportunity, was it a quick yes?
Yeah, I mean, I was in a unique situation where I was already on staff for, I think, 2 years, almost 3 years before we started Logoti. So I was already here, so to speak, pretty ingrained in, with staff and the congregation, and was also involved indirectly a little bit in getting Logoti going. So when we started through that process and we were talking it all through, because we talked about it a little bit prior and how it would look, and hey, we looked at other models and here's how they do it and here's how we feel it would need to be done. It was an easy call. Plus with Daniel doing kind of switching some of the day-to-day, say, I don't know, HR if you want to call it, or some of that, switching that over was fine with me. I'm not as detailed as he is, that you have to be to do some of that. So how we move that around and kind of move some responsibilities worked really great.
Yeah, I think to build on that, and I'm not going to say anything that's going to insult Ryan because he's heard this before. I think Drew and I even said to ourselves, executive pastor role would kill Ryan at that time because executive pastor is a lot of desk work, a lot of HR, and less being out a man of the people. Yeah, and he's kind of built to be a man of the people.
We immediately saw with Daniel taking that role. And him talking to other XPs and doing some other research, all of a sudden we had a large handbook, and then we had some other documents. We had all these things that we didn't have before, and I'm thinking, you still wouldn't have it if I was in that role, because I'm not a wordsmith. I'm not
Why?
good at that, so
Yeah.
it fit well.
Well, I don't think we looked at it at all as you couldn't do that role. It's like it would be, there's things that give you energy and there's things that zap you of energy. And I think we felt like that would probably zap, just as it would me. I wouldn't be good in an executive minister role because, yeah, I need to be doing what I do, you know. So,
As I think you both would probably state, and I think you just did, you're playing to your strengths, and this set Ryan up to play to his strengths. And I love the terminology, man with the people, because when you're on campus, whether it's during a Sunday or any other time during the week, Ryan's constantly moving from place to place and putting the pieces together. So I'm sure a ranger comes into play for you in that regard. So it sounds like the model's worked. Reflecting back, has there been any deviation from the model, from the vision at that point to where you are today?
I don't think we have. We've stuck pretty well with it, even across campuses. With Corey and Cameron, I liken it back when I was in the corporate world. You're in a meeting and you're talking about things, and you have direction, you have plans, and maybe not everybody agrees with it. But when you leave that room, everybody's all in, and that's kind of how we've been. We may not always agree with how we do things, even though Lagodi and Tell City and Jasper, all three have their distinct and unique things about it. We're not Lagodi, Lagodi's not us, they're not Tell City. It's all different, but yet in how our plans and how we say we're going to do things, we're all on board with that, and that's stayed solid all throughout.
And that's really why choosing the right person for that role is so important, because there's everything's a balance. There's this tension, but there's such a need. Like, you want to walk into any of our campuses and just automatically feel this is redemption. Mm-hmm. Yeah, like this is I get it. Like, there's so much that's the same in the. It's kind of a dirty term in the church world, but in the franchise sense, if you're dropped flat down in the middle of a Target anywhere, blindfolded, and open your eyes, you're in Target, right? They're different. Groceries may be here at one and maybe there at the other, but that part is there. But at the same time, we're from different places, and you want that local feel and that local distinctiveness to be, and personality to be present. And so choosing the right campus pastor. So it was great because Ryan, even though he was born and raised in Tell City, had been at Jasper, worked Jasper Engines for a great period of time. Kids went to school here. He got Jasper. Like, it's not hard for him, although it was years before he was able to put on a Jasper
It took me like 18 years. I couldn't do it. I grew up not liking it, so it was like, it took me, I think Megan was in a freshman before I actually wore a actual Jasper Wildcat shirt. I couldn't do it.
Yeah. But he
Appreciate the honesty.
That's right.
And so he was very much a part of this community. I mean, even before he was campus minister, if you go out, people knew Ryan. And so perfect to bring the distinctiveness of Du Bois County surroundings that we're in, while at the same time being redemption, and having that friendly, love God, love people atmosphere in the building and in the lobby and in the community. And so Ryan does a great job of that, and maybe he could talk just a little bit about how what his week looks like really as a campus pastor. I think it's important because people like, campus pastor, what's that mean? What's it look like?
Yeah, and there's definitely some certain set things to do. A lot of it is random. I even think, thinking of, Jasper and Lagodi and Tell City, while again we're all on the same page on a lot of things, the role on each campus is also a little different, especially here being the broadcast campus, and I'm at the campus with Daryl and LG and Daniel, so, and some most of all the other staff. So there's some things that happen here throughout each week, each month, what have you, that maybe look a little different than they do at each one, but. Definitely each week as our campus pastors run, getting ready for the week, getting ready for Sunday, getting, say, staff ready and different volunteers. So that takes part of the week of just getting organized and ready, because, Sunday comes every week. My oldest daughter Megan's in ministry now, and they do Thursday, Sunday, and she plans things and talks about things. But hey, look, Thursday and Sunday are coming every week, so you got to prepare for it. So part of the week is preparing for that, and then where the randomness comes in is, again, you're the go-to guy for a lot of people. So the amount of, say, phone calls and emails that come in are going to vary with questions on how we do this, can we do that, hey, we want to help here, we want to do this. So again, that kind of directs some things. And then as being, you look at the campus and actually the area as, okay, these are your people.
They're your sheep.
They're the sheep, and you want to take care of them. So, whether it's meeting someone in the office or going to the hospital or in a home or what have you. So, that, and again, those vary week by week, and your schedule's going to change. If we get a call when we're done with this that someone's in the hospital or someone needs something, you drop, Daryl's taught us a long time ago that it's, people over policy. We don't have a lot of policies per se, but we people will trump anything we're doing today.
And the thing that our campus pastors do, Ryan's really good at this, is a lot of pastoral visits, hospitals, funeral home visits. Like I still go to a lot. My area, I think, of giftedness, so I probably do more pastoral visits at hospitals and nursing homes than a lot of lead ministers of larger churches do. I get filled up from it. It's part of who I am, and I always think people don't care how much you know till they know how much you care, so I think it helps me preach to them when they see me there. But anyway, it's rare for me to go somewhere and Ryan not be there or be coming there, because he's the pastor of the people, and same with Corey and Cameron. It's important, and they do some counseling in their own right, but really the key is that they're the shepherd of the flock there, the main shepherd of the local body there, the location there, and so he does a great job of that. They do a great job of that, and then they, again, like he said, they bring their own personality to that. Ryan's probably a little bit more in the day-to-day management here because he has a natural administrative desire, whereas I would say some of our other campuses, maybe somebody else does a lot of that role, and so they got to figure those kind of things out. Every campus pastor is not going to be the exact same. But they're going to have some of the same responsibility. And I would say pastorally, being there during times of hurt and celebrations, I would say that these guys get asked to do more weddings than we do as preaching staff, and about equal amount of funerals, because people look to him as their minister. And not only that, now because he is the Jasper campus one, then the funeral homes call him when they have somebody they need a funeral for and stuff like that. So you just really see them being kind of shepherds of that local body of believers, and it's fun. And we couldn't do what we do without that. Like, it wouldn't, this model that we do wouldn't work without the Ryan Stiles, the Corey Andrews, and the Cameron Gladys's. It's just really awesome. And we hope to talk to those other two guys at some point in the future episodes as well.
Yeah, and Corey found that out early. Once we opened Tell City, he was working in there for a year or so before we physically opened. But once we opened, he started getting phone calls and meeting funeral home directors and other folks in the community, and he got involved, right out of the gate.
And even a tragedy where a police officer was killed, and he was called to be there for the police officers and speak at a community event, a lot of things like that, yeah.
And being on this campus, like Daryl mentioned, the management side of it, it is, each campus is different, especially here for me. Being on this campus, and I've told people, he's heard me say this before, I'm not a vision guy. I'm a get it done. Hey, what is the vision? What do you need? Okay, now let's go do it. So that's where I come in, a lot of times of, hey, we want to do this. Even with the other ministries, I've always told them, part of my role is to help you do the best and help you succeed the best you can. Because I'm not gonna dabble in your curriculum, and I'm not gonna ask you to do things a certain way because that's their expertise. Same way with what they do on Sunday. If they want something done, we'll do it. But I'm not gonna critique or, tell them how we're gonna do the messages. But if there's stuff involved in that, or we've got a plan, or we've got a certain series that we want to do certain things, heck, tell me what to do, and I'm all for it. But I'm not going to sit back and vision cast for the next year.
Daryl, you've spent a lot of time in previous episodes and really been consistent, and I'm going to overuse that word right now. And Ryan, would like to really hear from you the consistency of the cultural and the development within Redemption. Many of us outside of church organization that come in 2 or 3 times a week would probably say, culture, that should be a natural, easy thing within churches. Daryl's helped us all understand that's not necessarily true.
Right.
During your time as campus minister, your time as a member of the church, when you look at how Redemption has been able to be so successful, why is that in sustaining that culture?
I think it comes down to, we've always preached it, of having just one goal in mind, and we're all in for the vision. We talked about other things in the outside world of keeping the main thing, and that's honestly what we've done, and that's what we preach, that's what we teach, that's what we talk about staff, what we tell our people is loving God, loving people, and changing the world. And we try to, those that don't know Jesus, we want them to know Jesus, and the ones that do know Him and the one that come in, we want to take care of them, and that includes, people that are coming into the building and those that are outside of the building. And I think we've kept that same vision, and people buy into it, and staff buys into it, and I've seen it for 13 years. So,
well, the fluidity of the way that it appears all of you work so well together. There doesn't appear, and I think you've said it, and I've heard you say it a bit today, as a foundation, there are no egos. Mm-hmm. Everyone understands their role, they accept their role, and they do everything they can to complement one another.
Yeah, there is at times egos, but we check them at the door, and that's the whole point. I think you hit on why it is the hiring of the right campus pastor is so important. Because when you're going to launch a new campus, what you're bringing in is a lot of new people, which is great. Some of those new people have church backgrounds, even though the number one goal is to reach unchurched or de-churched people. Even some of them have church backgrounds, and some people come over. And so what they do is they naturally want to bring in something they liked from their previous, especially if it's where they were won to the Lord at. And they want to bring that ministry in, and men's ministry, women's ministry, and all these things. And you go to churches sometimes, and there's just like so many things on the menu. It's like, what? And they don't necessarily do anything as focused in as they would like to. And so our campus pastors have to be really conscientious of that. And they have to guard the vision. They have to be able to lovingly push back against some ideas, tell some people, oh, that's a great idea, but we're probably not going to do that right now. Here's why, because we start with why is a great way to do that. And the temptation as a campus pastor, you're trying to get this new thing launched, is to say yes to everything. And so they've really got to be bombarded with that DNA and be able to do that well. And I think that's why hiring that person, I think I've said this in a previous episode, I don't remember if we've talked about it in this episode, but that's why we often, every single time so far, has hired our campus pastors from within, because they have the DNA and the culture of who we are. And probably that will mostly be the case. We'll either hire somebody who's on our staff for that position, shift into that, or somebody who's a partner in the church, because they get it. Like, you get to see they're living that DNA and that ministry out. And whereas when you bring somebody in from the outside, it's a whole different animal, and they're not quite as ready to carry that culture and DNA out. So anyway, that's kind of why that's important. I think every one of our guys do that really, really well.
Well, for our guest today, I've never heard anyone who didn't say they didn't love Ryan Stiles. Even
Well,
though,
thank
as you pointed out, he's went to basketball.
Yeah, he's a
He's
referee.
crossed the line.
Officials, I'm sure he's got some enemies now.
Yeah,
In that piece, but you certainly are one who helps bring out the heartbeat of redemption, whether it's at the Jasper campus or overall in Tell City and Lagodi. For the rest of us, not a part of the direct team at the church, what can we do to further help continue the consistency of the culture and the servant focus that redemption has?
well, that's a good question. I think, as for all of us, if you're looking at that, what can we do? I mean, we have it on the wall of love God, love people, and change the world. Those just aren't random letters we put on the wall, and we feel like we are one. You know, we say, you know, one church, multiple locations. Staff and Daryl and myself, we don't separate ourselves from the one. So everyone that comes in is a part of it. Everyone, we like to say everyone's a minister in a sense. And if we are truly loving God and loving people, we're changing the world, not only here in the building, but in our communities and surrounding and everywhere. So if you truly do that, you know, that just makes a world of difference, and it makes you feel, you know, part of a family.
Well, Ryan, we appreciate you joining us for this episode. Our first ever guest on the Redemption
Yeah,
Story.
thanks for having me. Appreciate
Brother,
you.
could tell Corey and Cameron you set the bar high for when we have them as guests, but love you and appreciate
Right.
you
Thank
for,
you so
for
much.
everything you do.
Appreciate
God
it. Thank
bless
you,
you,
man.
my friend.
All right.
work.
Thanks, brother.
Thank you for watching the Redemption Story. Until next time.